Okay.
Got
Yeah.
it? Okay, so recording. All right.
Yes,
Victoria, real quick, do you consent to the recording of this podcast?
I do.
Do you consent to the release of this podcast on various platforms?
I do.
Okay, let's take a second. Welcome back, listeners. Today, our show will be about death. Not to be morbid, my perspective on this is that it's a natural part of life and that we should start a debate about it as early as whenever your kids ask, like what happens when someone dies, what happened when grandma passes away or whatever. Um, I recently lost my parents. My guest, Victoria, lost her mother when she was pretty young, and she's written a chapter in a book today. And we will discuss that and the more broader idea of death, the loss and love of just the whole spirituality of it, the science of it, how it affects us as a culture. Victoria, can you please introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, my name is Victoria Serratos. I am a licensed clinical social worker. So that's what I do on the side. I am, let's see, you could say a wife, a mother, right? And I don't know, what else can I say? That's
Latina.
always an awkward question. Oh,
Yeah.
Latina, there you go, Latina, Chicana. Yes, Mexican parents. Oh, and I have to correct you on that one. You said that I wrote about my mother's death, that my mother died. It's actually both of my parents.
Oh, okay.
So I actually lost both of my parents when I was a teenager.
Thank you for
So
correcting me.
that's what that's about. That's what this is about. So
Yeah. So let's start with that. I think that's a perfect segue.
Mhm.
Tell us
Okay.
about the what you wrote.
Okay, yeah. So let's see. So this is a book that recently released. It's an anthology, The Day She Left: Survivor's Diary, and what it is, it's 6 different authors who collaborated in the book, right, to write either stories of trauma, loss, just hardship, and how they were able to overcome, and how they're living their lives now.
Awesome.
Right. So it's like that. Yeah. My story was about grief. My story was about the loss of my parents as a teenager and how that affected me and how that led me into social work, pretty much into therapy.
Okay.
So that's me. Mm-hmm.
To be a therapist, did you actually receive any therapy at the time? And how old were you at when you lost your parents?
Oh, man. I wish I would have actually. No, I didn't. I was 12 years old when my father passed away. My father was actually a victim of a drive-by. So I lived in,
Sorry.
I lived in North Hollywood, so North Hollywood, California. And yeah, he was a victim of a drive-by one night. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a like evening. It's still like, certain things I remember, but but all this stuff is in the book, right? So it's like, it was the evening time. My brother's girlfriend at the time came to pick me up and took me to the store. And when I came back, there was cops everywhere and ambulances and all kinds of stuff. And I didn't know what had happened until I came and I saw my mom. My first thought was like, oh no, man, something happened to my mom. Because my mom was always in and out of the hospital. She had kidney issues. So her problem was kidney issues since I was 2. And so she was in and out of the hospital. So that night I came home and I thought it was her. I went and I saw, and she was actually on the ground crying and like screaming and stuff. And like, she told me, that my father was shot. And I was just like, what? It was, of course, 12 years old. I'm like, what? It's like a whole shock type thing. It didn't hit me until like a week later.
Accidental shooting? Or was this part of like some gang stuff?
Yeah, it's hard. It's difficult to say because I heard different stories. So the week before it happened, my father was shooed away like a couple gang members from his he had a garage that he was renting where he kept his welding tools. And so like about a week before that, he caught some guys who were trying to get into the garage and he'd shoot them away.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people feel that it might have been retaliation for that.
Right.
Somebody said that they actually saw, there was somebody who was running down who was coming down the stairs when they heard the shots, and they actually ran into our apartment building. They just opened the door and they like ducked inside. He said that he saw somebody shine a light. Oh man, sorry, I got a call. He said that he saw somebody shine a light before shooting. So I don't know. We heard all kinds of things.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what's your first thought when you see your mom like that? Like what's going through your head? What are you feeling at that time?
Oh man, it was shocking. It was shocking. I didn't know what to think. I just remember it was like when we went to the hospital, we waited because they took him in ambulance. And you know how you have the doctor come out in the series, like the hospital series, and I'm sorry, we did everything we could, like exactly like that.
Oh,
It
wow.
was exactly like that. So we just stood there and stuff, and the doctor came out, and I'm sorry, we did exactly what we could. And it was just kind of like, and it was strange. It was just a shock. It didn't hit me, like I said a little while ago, it didn't hit me until about a week after. Like we had his funeral, and then it didn't really hit me for a little while. And
so at that age, I know you grew up in North Hollywood. I'm not sure what the violence was like at that time in North Hollywood, but have you had any experience with death at that time? Or was this your first one?
No, this was my first. Yeah, this was my first death. Yeah, that I known of. Before that, I've heard of people, but I didn't really know them like that. Right. It was the gang violence in the area at the time was pretty prevalent. There was a lot of shootings. There was a lot of stuff that would happen. So I remember growing up hearing different like gunshots and things like that. But yeah, no, it was my first. It was my first.
That's a big one.
Yeah, and even and even like the what is it? The service, when we go to the cemetery and all that stuff, like even that was just strange. Like the way that for me at the time, I wrote about how the way that they fixed him up, right? Because they have to fix him up to look a certain way. Right. The way that they fixed him up, like they did half of a face, like only the face that's visible, right, to the people. And I remember the way that they stretched, and it really, like, to me, I remember my young mind, I was like, he looks like a vampire. Right. It freaked me out. I couldn't, and that's the thing too, like I could not get close to the casket. I was like far away. I was just looking from far away. Like I couldn't even get close. It was just strange. Until I made myself kind of get closer, and I noticed the opposite side of his face. And I focused on that side, and that's the way that I was actually able to get close. But I remember those little things, like when you're a kid. Yeah. Was
that helpful for you, like having the funeral? And people say that you need to have a funeral so you could say your goodbye, make your peace. And I'm not sure if I'm sure it worked for a lot of people, but I don't know, like in my personal experience, I don't know if it was very, very helpful, because what I saw in the casket when I looked at my mom when she passed away, like that wasn't my mom. I didn't even like to have her there like that in front of everyone, because I feel like she wouldn't have liked it. You know what I mean? Like I know my mom, and the way she looks right now in this environment, the way it is, I'm like, I don't think she would have liked this,
Yeah. Honestly, at that age, I was just going along with it. I don't think it was really much of I have to, or I felt like that as a kid, when all that ended up happening, I did have nightmares. So that's something that I do remember. Like I did remember like seeing my father in like dreams, like a monster. And I don't know if it was because of the way that they ended up like, doing the face and stuff. But and then I know that when my mother passed away, like just it was very like it was very different experiences.
Let's talk about that.
Because of my father, right? With my father, he was a bread maker, the breadwinner. He would like, bring the money home. My mother was sick, so she was a stay-at-home mom. She would get disability and things like that, but he was pretty much like his income, right? So he'd come home and he just, hang out, watch TV. Like we wouldn't really interact like that. Oh, daddy, hi. And then that's kind of it. He wasn't the kind of dad who would play around and stuff. And so I was closer to my mom. So when he went, it was sad and I missed him, but it wasn't like, oh my God, When my mother passed away, that hit me hard. She was like
sort of your emotional rock.
Everything. She was everything to me, so when she ended up passing away, that was hard. That was really hard.
And how old were you when that happened?
I was 17.
Okay, so about 5 years
after. I had just turned 17, actually. I had just turned 17. It was, I remember my birthday is in May. She passed in June.
Okay. I know you said 17. She was sick. She'd been sick since you were 2, but was this kind of unexpected, or did you see it coming? Like it was like any day now type of thing?
I feel like it was, honestly, it was unexpected because she was in and out. Well, I guess if it was unexpected in a sense, because she was in and out, you hear that?
Yeah, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I got kids.
Daddy. Okay. It's like, she was in and out of the hospital. So for me, that time it felt like, oh, she'll be back. She's always in and out, that kind of thing. We got used to her going in and coming out, and she's always coming out, but what ended up happening this time around, it was different. So she was on an experimental, at the time it was experimental kidney dialysis that you do at home. So, and then it was I don't know if you know about it, but it's they would put it in your stomach.
Mhm.
So it's something that they put in the stomach to like help you. You know, it's the whole like the same thing as like the dialysis does, but at home, right? And so, but that caught an infection. So it got infected. They didn't catch it in time. Unfortunately, she ended up going to the hospital Monday, and by Wednesday, Thursday morning, she was gone. So it was that
Wow.
quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we thought she was going to be coming back. You know.
Yeah. You kind of got used to that pattern of she gets sick, she goes to the
Mhm.
hospital, but she comes back.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was a shock, even though we knew she was sick and you know what to expect eventually.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to happen like then and there.
Yeah. That makes me think about, there's no good way to lose a parent, right?
Mhm.
But I feel like for me, I kind of was lucky. For one thing, both my parents died when I was in my 40s. So I got
Mhm.
all that time with them.
Mhm.
Um, and then they got sick and I could see it coming.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It was like,
Mhm.
okay, there's no going back from here. This train is going straight ahead.
Mhm.
And I'm grateful for that, but I still feel a loss. Like, cause
Of course.
yeah, when my mom went, that was the first time dealing with something like that big, your mom,
Mhm.
whatever. And I remember that first time when you tell yourself, oh, I'm gonna call my mom, and that's not there anymore. And the same thing happened like with my dad. He got COVID. And I remember my sister called me because she's in the States, she's close to him, and her saying, oh, the doctors put him on a ventilator.
Mhm.
So had I been there, I would have told him, don't do that. Don't put him on the ventilator, because I heard that was like almost like a death sentence.
Oh yeah.
But it is what it is. And once he got there, I got an emergency flight back to the States, and I got to see him. I couldn't talk to him or anything like that. But it just got me thinking, like your story and other friends' stories that I've talked about with this thing is like, is there sort of a better way? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, because I don't know. It's tough. Either way you think about it, when you lose someone like that, it's just there's
Mhm.
no good way to do it.
But, yeah, I mean, a death is hard regardless. You know what I mean? A death of a parent or a child.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? That's tough.
Those are the two tough
You
ones.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, I think it doesn't matter like how old you are. You know,
Yeah.
the death of a parent is always gonna if your parent is a parent that you get along with and stuff like that too. You know,
That too.
I know
Yeah.
people who don't get along with their parents and things.
Yeah.
But if you love your parents and you know you're close to them and stuff, the death of a parent, you know, is difficult. You
Well,
know, it doesn't matter how old you are.
that's what makes me think about it happening at such a young age, like it did to some of my friends, is that they're your world. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
As a child, like it's almost like losing a limb. Like, okay, one day I could
Mm-hmm.
walk, now I can't walk.
Oh yeah, yeah. It definitely affects you know how you see life, and it affects how you grow up. You know,
Yeah.
and how you learn and how you just live.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of things that I probably did when I was younger that I wouldn't have done if my mother was around.
Yeah.
You know.
How do you think you were
Yeah.
able to cope? Because I mean, I met you years later, and you seem, you're pretty good, you're pretty well put together
Feel pretty
person.
normal.
Yeah, you know what I
You know?
mean? For whatever that means. I don't agree with that term
I know.
normal, but
I
yeah, I
know.
mean, I remember a young man, same thing, lost his mom in a drive-by when we were kids. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember, because I used to my parents had like split custody. So every weekend I would go with my dad, and my dad lived in a really rough projects. And I remember for like 2, maybe 3 weeks, a month. I don't really remember, because it was a long time ago. I was like 10 years old or something like that. He didn't come. He came like to visit. He would say hi and eat with us or whatever, but he didn't take me back like he normally did. And I just felt like, okay, there's something going on. I don't remember what I thought at the time. But then when I finally got to go back there, it just having this dreary, solemn feeling. I mean, looking around for my best
Mm-hmm.
friend, it was his mom that,
Mm-hmm.
that got shot. And then I kind of like slowly kind of pieced it together, what happened and why
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go there right away.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know what kind of point I was trying to
That's
make with that.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's just you know like a sudden death. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
shock. Those things are shocks. You know, like it's different. You know, like you said, it's different when you're anticipating. You
Yeah.
know, but then again, it's also um, that's one of the things I remember because I took a grief and loss class when I was in at USC for the grad program. Um, And I remember one thing that we did talk about was the difficulty of it doesn't matter, like it's just the loss, right? One is a like if it just happens all of a sudden, it's the shock, it's
Yeah.
the what, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then the other of like if it's an illness and you
If it
seeing them,
drags out the agony,
then you
yeah.
also know that you're seeing them slowly die in front of you,
Yeah.
and that pain that comes with that. So it's you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Yeah.
just pain in general.
So I
It's hard
remember, yeah,
regardless.
definitely. I remember the point I was trying to make, which was how to cope with it. And like I said,
Oh
I was
yeah.
trying to make the point that I felt that I wasn't there. I don't know how you did with it, but with the time I met you, seemed to be okay with it. But my
Mm-hmm.
friend,
Mm-hmm.
from that time to whenever I stopped being that guy's friends, which was probably like before we became young adults, he did not handle it well. He became very self-destructive. Like you couldn't mention his mom, like anything. Like he felt like he had to like keep her alive in some way. I don't think he ever learned to let go. And I know it was a big problem with him and his family. You know what I mean? Yeah, because he just didn't learn to cope with it. It never moved past it.
And when it's that difficult for you, then that's when you seek help. You know what I mean? That's when you need to like look for a professional to help you through it, because it's honestly, I think a lot of the times it's also perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I know what helped me when my father passed away, what helped me was having my mother. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But when my mother passed away, what helped me was having her teachings. So it's her teaching, her things that she taught me, the things that she told me, the things that she would tell me, all the conversations and stuff that we had. Because I think about that, and I'm like, when my mother passed away, the pain that I had, the anger that I felt at the time, I could have totally got destructive. I totally just forget about everything and just gone and just done. But the thing is that I was also the way that my mom brought me up, the way that I was also very, very nervous of what if I do and I mess up, what if I, in a sense, right? So I still had that in the back of my mind, and then because I remember it was my senior year of high school when my mother passed away. So it was my last year of high school. So I was this close to failing. Like I was about to fail. Right. Yeah. And I remember getting my progress report, and most all my classes were in danger of failing.
Wow.
Everything was a D, like pretty much down the board. And because I was getting up late, my brothers at the time, they were dealing with their own thing. They'd have to work. So they'd get up and go to work, and then they'd leave me to my own accord to get up and go to school. And it didn't happen. I'd get up late. I'd walk in whenever, I'd be walking in the class. It's like second, third period, kind of thing. And so what ended up, at that moment, snapping me out of it was when I saw my progress report card, and the first thought was like, oh my God, my mom wouldn't want me not to graduate. Yeah. And I me puse, como dicen, me puse las pilas, you know what I mean? I got on, and I was just like, and I need to, and I started really like, doing as much as I could, because I was still really down. Honestly, I wish somebody would have said like, you know what, you should get therapy. Nobody mentioned it to me.
Yeah.
Nobody, no adult in my life, nobody at school, no teacher. And that's the one thing that I feel like people around me at that age, I felt like they let me down, because I'm like, I had no idea. I didn't know anything.
Why do you think that happened? Why do you think no one said, hey, Victoria, come talk to this counselor or something? Because people knew at school, right? People knew, your family knew.
Everybody knew. Everybody knew. I remember when I was when my father died, I was going into 7th grade. So back then it was junior high, 7th, 8th, 9th. I was going into 7th grade. So I was starting middle, junior high when my father passed away. Everybody knew. I remember, because it was on the news. When my mother passed away, it was on the news because it was a drive-by, and my mother was on, I don't know if you remember Primer Impacto.
No.
My mother came out on that program on
news program?
Telemundo. Okay. It was a news program on Telemundo, and my mom went on there, and she was asking for assistance because we didn't have any money for his funeral.
Wow.
So everybody knew. And I remember, and nobody said anything. All my teachers, nobody ever mentioned anything. And then when it happened with my mom again, I just remember people were like, all I remember was people kind of like, okay, you have to get over it. No way. Like the undertone of everything they told me was, okay, you need to get past this. You need to get past,
But you had school counselors, right?
Nobody sent me to the freaking counselor. That's what I'm telling you. Nobody, at the time, I was like, nobody went, you know what, you should talk to somebody. Nobody that I recall telling me, like, you should talk to somebody, you should go and see here, talk to. I remember I was in band class. I remember I took band. And I remember just playing songs and bursting out crying. I would burst out crying and just start crying. And the teacher pulled me aside. And he's just like, Vicky, he's like, you need to get it together. You need to try. And he's trying to pep talk me, but at the same time, it's like making me sound like you need to put these feelings away and you need to just
Yeah.
start, you know. And it just, I remember running out of there. I couldn't. I was crying, and I was getting mad at him, and I remember leaving. I stormed outside, and I left the band room, and I left the teacher in there.
Okay.
You know?
I want to ask
I remember
how,
going and stuff.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which is, I find that shocking. I can't believe that somebody,
I know, me too.
nobody, maybe it's one of those things like, you know, they talk about like when we were like an undergrad for psychology, where it's like nobody does something because they always think the other person is going to do
Probably.
it. You know what I mean?
Probably.
Maybe it's that, which is like, it's still not an excuse, right? But I wanted to
But
go
then
in.
again, you got to think about like the time, right? It's
Mhm.
98. This was in
Mhm.
97, right? I think
Mhm.
it was 97. So I don't know how, I don't even remember back then hearing about therapy. Like, I don't know if people around me actually knew anybody who was in therapy, who did therapy.
That's why I'm curious
That's another
about
thing too.
the school you went to and everything, because I'm older than you. So I got, you know, I remember like in high school, junior high school, things happening and people going to talk to the counselors. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm so shocked about it. Like if I did it in New York about at least, you know, 5 to 10 years older than you are, like, why wasn't it there for you? You know what I mean? I don't know.
That's the thing. Yeah. That would have
We're
been
never
good
gonna
to know,
figure it out.
honestly.
We're never going to figure it out.
Honestly,
That's
I
the
don't
next
even know.
book. We're
I
going to
mean,
write a chapter. Why didn't anyone say?
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. And it'd be nice to see if I can actually ask people, but I think a lot of my teachers, like I know my band teacher, I know he's passed away.
Yeah.
I know he passed away a few years ago. So like, who knows? You know?
Okay. So,
But,
yeah, I wanted to ask about how you were able to process all that. But before that, or sort of like leading into that question is what was death to you before that? Like, I know what happened to your dad and you didn't have any like personal experience, but I guess my greater question is we sort of don't confront death in our society. It's always looked about as a bad thing, like, oh my God, he died. And I don't know if that's healthy. I don't know if not having a conversation about death early on is a healthy thing, and in creating sort of a positive thought or atmosphere about it, where you go, oh, they're going to another place, or, you know, it's just a part of life, they're moving on.
right.
You know what I mean? I think part of not talking about it and then sort of having that negative connotation is what's making this maybe so hard. I mean, it's not the whole story, because like when you, like I said, you lose a father, you lose a mother, that's a big life change. That's an earthquake right there. Sorry, it's not a good question, but do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Kinda. I'm trying to understand you.
Well, what was your relationship, I guess, to death?
Okay.
At that time is what I'm trying to say.
See, I think it honestly has a lot to do. I feel like how you see death has a lot to do with how you grow up and what you believe in.
Right, and how you end up
what I
eventually
mean? Like
processing
the way I see it now is very different to the way I saw it when I was younger. You know, and it has to do with my spiritual beliefs.
Okay.
You know what I mean? When I was younger, the spiritual beliefs that I had, you know, it was very much the religion I was in, and it was when somebody passes away, they're pretty much gone. Like nothing else is afterlife. There's nothing else. It's just they're gone, and then it's more of a future. You're looking for a future.
You'll see them in the future.
Paradise type of thing. You know what I mean? A future paradise type thing. But right now, like they're not here anymore. You know, in a sense. So, and like now, I honestly, once I got out of that and stuff, because that was the religion I was in with my mother. So once I ended up that, I went through my own spiritual, you know, going through my own spiritual journey, you know, reading different things. And now I honestly believe there is, you know, for myself, I believe there is an afterlife. I believe we are a spirit in a human body, you know, so when we leave, we go home, you know, type of thing. And so now that I feel like this point of view and this perspective also helps a lot more, you know, in being able to feel like, okay, they're here, you know.
Yeah. I'm slowly coming to that in my life. I kind of feel, I don't know, I'm just struck by the fact that we just sort of come into this life. It's like, well, where was I before that? What was I doing? What was going on before that? I sort of just came here and I wake up, I'm in this reality, right? And one
Right.
day, like so many other people, I will leave this reality. And then where do I go? There's something absurd about this whole thing to me, which makes me question a lot about reality. I struggle with what reality is a lot. I'm going to do a whole podcast with some people. I have a
Oh,
friend
that
that's
sounds
a
good.
yeah, I have a friend that's a shaman that's seen like all kind of spirits, and some other friends
Nice.
we're gonna get together.
Nice.
And but I struggle with that. I'm being serious. I feel like a lot of times like people are taking life too serious. Like this is almost like a joke or something like kind of like you said, like, look, I'm in this shell
Mhm.
for now. My soul is here, my spirit, whatever you want to say. And maybe it's like
Mhm.
a video game or something like this. Like it's game over, and then I go back to wherever it is. And hopefully everyone that
Mhm.
I met and that I love, I will see that person.
Mhm.
That seems to
Mhm.
make a lot of sense to me. Because the fact that
Mhm.
I just wake up out of nowhere and then I go back
Mhm.
nowhere,
Mhm.
and you come here, you have no map, no
Mhm.
instructions. Like
Mhm.
it baffles me.
Yeah. See, then that's the thing. I've gotten to the point where now it's like my beliefs. I've come to believe that, like I said, we're here in spirit. We're spirits in a human body having a human existence
Right.
for the evolution of our soul. You know, I
Right.
feel that this is all for the evolution of our soul. We're all here to learn. Everything that we do on earth is
Exactly. Yeah.
something to learn. Everything is a learning lesson. You know what I mean? Like one of my favorite sayings, I don't know if you ever remember me having, but I have that plaque right up here. And I used to have that over at DD as well. Right. And it
Uh-huh.
says, stop asking why I'm stuck in this situation and start asking what do I need to learn from this situation.
The meaning
Right.
of
So
it. Yeah. Yeah.
everything I feel is a learning lesson, you know, everything that we go through. So I feel like that's what we're here to do, you know.
Yeah. I think that it's interesting about this existence. I think you could be bogged down by the fact that negative things happen or that you're struggling. But now that I look at it, it's like without there's something that has to get you going. And a lot of times that's what it is. Okay, let's the basics. Okay, you come into this world, you feel a little growl in your stomach. Oh, that's hungry. It's a negative feeling or something, right? Oh, I need to
Mm-hmm.
go move to go eat. Or I'm feeling sad. Oh, maybe I'm lonely. I need to go move and make relationships. So everything that we sort of do that gets us to move is in a way sort of a challenge. So now I
Mm-hmm.
look at it that way. I,
Mm-hmm.
I said to myself, okay, I'm doing this. Why? What's the meaning of this? Something bad
Mm-hmm.
happened to me or something that's making me unhappy, uncomfortable. What can I learn from it? What is it that I need to do? Because I feel like I'm almost being told like a signal, hey, look at this.
Mm-hmm.
We need you to do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Can you share with me so because you didn't get any therapy, right? So what led you to make that bridge, right?
Not
So
until later.
you didn't get any therapy. How do you jump over to like, oh, I'm going to be a therapist?
Yeah, that took a while. It took a while to get me there. Because when this happened, right? All I know is that, but it's really funny the way that when it ended up happening, the things that I did to help me out of it
Uh-huh.
when my father passed away and when my mother passed away, I both talked a lot about it, talked a lot about it, talked a lot about
Yes.
it. Anybody that would hear me talk about my story, I would tell them. I would tell it over and over and over and talk about how, oh
Yes.
man, it was, and like, you know how, you remember doing trauma work, right?
Uh-huh.
Did you do some trauma work?
Uh-huh.
Right. So it's like kind of like talking about it, expressing the feelings, being able to
Mm-hmm.
like get everything out and stuff like that. And
Right.
I did that without even like,
Just naturally.
actually, yeah, without actually knowing so much, you know what I mean? That it was something that was going to be good to do, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but I ended up like, anybody that would listen, I talked. And that's one of the things I think that really helped me also move past, make sense of it. A lot of times it's just talking and talking and talking,
Yeah. Did you ever feel a
so yeah.
sense? Because I know, like for me, dealing with trauma, that I would do that, right? I would talk anyone who would listen. That I got to a point that I was like, I'm tired of telling this story. I don't want to tell this
Mm-hmm.
story anymore. And that sort of
Mm-hmm.
like led me to the next step of kind of moving
Mm-hmm.
past it. Did you
Mm-hmm.
experience
Yeah,
something like
in a
that?
sense.
Yeah.
I think it was more not so much me being aware of it, but I
Mm-hmm.
think I just did it. I just stopped talking so much about it, and I just kind of just
You
moved on
moved on.
in a sense. Because I mean it's hard. You know, what I mean I don't feel like you ever really move on. Like there's
It's always
holidays
there.
and birthdays, and it always comes back.
Yeah.
The grief always hits you again in the special moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
young
like
Victoria,
I
she's
was,
in high school. I'm sorry, you want to say something?
no, go ahead.
Okay. So young
You can do that.
Victoria, she's she's struggling in high school. She gets it back together. She graduates high school. Do you go straight to college then?
No.
Okay, tell me
No.
about that period of your life.
No, I was right out of high school. I didn't want to do anything right out of high school. I was like, I don't want to go to college. I applied to CSUN, I got in, and I didn't go. I also did, I tried a lot of things. I tried a lot of
Did
different
you
hats.
work?
I tried a lot of, I did work for a little bit, but no, what I ended up doing right out of high school, actually, I went to court reporting school.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's such. I did
Yeah,
not
that
know
was funny that I did.
that.
I know, it's funny. I know I did that but I mean, I didn't, it was 4 months. I went to that school for 4 months. And I
Okay.
just remember waking up every morning, going to school, completely miserable.
Oof.
And I was going, if this is how my job is going to be, I don't want to do this. So I
Right.
dropped out after 4 months.
Okay.
And then I went to beauty school. And
Okay.
I decided to go to beauty school because beauty school was something I had thought of doing as a kid. I remember being in elementary telling everybody that I was going to be a beautician, the whole world. And so I was like, you know what, why not? So I went and I did that. I have my license. I got my license. I still keep my license active just in case I need it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So then after that, I was working at salons. I was doing certain things like I'd assist. And then I went to work at like Supercuts, and no, the last time I worked, I'm sorry, go back. The last time I worked, I was an assistant, and I was working, and I was like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Yeah. I told myself, I can't see myself standing all day cutting hair like that. I can't. This seems like it's going to be like really strenuous, and so I got to go back to school, know. And I remember too, my mom would always push like college and education and stuff. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to go back.
How long was that from graduating till you decided you need to go back to school?
I went back when I was 22. So I started, I went to community college at 22. Okay. Yeah. So I started at 22. I went to Los Angeles Valley College. And then from there I transferred to CSUN. At CSUN, I was, and the counseling thing wasn't even on my mind. I went from community college to CSUN, and CSUN, I did a sign language interpreting program.
Yeah, which CSUN is famous for, yeah.
Yeah, so I ended up doing that, and then I really liked it, but I wish I would have chosen their social service. They had a social service field, what do you call it, a track. I wish I would have done that instead
like a
of
pipeline,
the interpreting. Instead of the interpreting, it was like the major, like you choose this or this, and I kind of chose. I listened to one of my professors, and I was like, all right, and I went on, and I should have done the other. Okay. Because it felt good, but it wasn't, I didn't feel like it was natural so much. Mm-hmm. It was more difficult for me, the whole interpreting the languages in the head to interpret, right. Because I have Spanish in there too. So English, Spanish, sign language, it was just all I was like, okay, this is all mixing up.
You can imagine having a conversation with you at that time. You're like, see, no, yes, maybe. Like, what? Right. What'd you just say to me?
I know.
I wonder what your dreams must have been like. Geez.
So that's why I was like, no. So I tried to do that, and it didn't quite work out. So I graduated CSUN in 2009, and then I applied to grad school, and in 2011, I believe.
Okay, let's pause because I want to go back because I'm mm-hmm. in the mindset of your growth and processing this whole experience. Mm-hmm. You graduate high school, you don't go to college for 2 years, like 22. So that's about a 4-year period there. You're trying out different jobs. Was there any form of like self-destruction? Were you partying, drinking, drugs, anything? Oh yeah. You had to go through that whole.
Not so much drugs. Yeah, not so much drugs. The hardest thing I did, when I was younger was marijuana. Okay. That's it. Other than that, alcohol.
Bad boyfriends.
But I never did it. Not bad. No, I was always older for my age. I feel like I was always looking for a relationship. Yeah, I was always looking for a relationship. I wasn't really dating around, or I had moments and stuff where the effort moments, and then I remember being younger and things like that. But I wasn't that bad.
Okay.
I was working. Yeah, I wasn't that bad. I was actually working a lot. I went from, what did I do? Around 2019, 20, I was actually working at City Walk. I was working at City Walk, and I go this way because I'm like maybe like 10 minutes away from City Walk that way.
Yeah, so, everyone doesn't know City Walk is right there.
Yeah. You know, but, what do you call it? So I was working as a hostess over at the what used to be Camacho's. They changed it up now to some other Mexican restaurant, but Camacho's up there, and then Tony Roma's, and then a little bit after that, I started working at Tony Roma's. And so when I was 21, I believe, 21, I was working two jobs. I was doing morning and night. So I was doing two serving jobs, morning and night. So I was going from, you know what I mean? I told you, I was working a lot.
Was that the way you think you were dealing with
it
it though? Like, because I know a lot of people, sometimes they don't want to deal with stuff. So they just kind of overload their day with a lot of stuff.
Yeah. You know what though? I don't even know if I was really thinking about it. I think I was just trying to survive at that point because one thing that I it's in the story and I didn't put this on here, but when I was talking about religion and stuff, right? When my old religion, I grew up as Jehovah's Witness, right? So as that said, when my mom was like, I also, with that said, I mean, at 19, I got married. So I got married at 19.
Okay.
And so
bad decision.
So that's part of the story. Yeah.
Making bad decisions.
The thing is that making bad decisions, exactly. You know what they say, right? That decision part of their brain doesn't really, you know, what is it? The part of the brain that the decision making doesn't close up until 25.
Something like
right?
that. Yeah.
So So I mean, what do you call it? So no, I ended up getting married at 19. What ended up happening was my brothers were all getting married around the same time. I was dating somebody from, you know, the Jehovah's Witness and stuff. And he asked, and I was like, okay, you know, they're getting married. I was kind of, okay, exactly. That's kind of how it felt in my mind. Like at 19, what else am I going to do? Where am I going to go? All my brothers are getting married. I'm going to have nowhere to go. Was kind of what was happening in my mind. Yeah. You know, and so it was kind of more of a need. It felt like, okay, instead of that, you know. And so we ended up, we were together for less than a year. Right. Wow. And so that was around by the time I was 21, I was pretty much separated. Okay. You know, and then that's when I was working the two jobs because I had the apartment that we had, I kept. And so he went back to live with his parents and, you know, I can't do that. So I kept the apartment and I had to pay rent. So I was working two jobs to pay rent and pay my, you know, pay the bills and all that stuff. So I pretty much started like, you know, just, living on my own younger. Okay. You know, so I had to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems to be a common story. I think that, I mean, you mentioned the part about our brains not fully developing, especially like the good decision-making part. But I think for a lot of people dealing with trauma, there comes a point where like it's the initial shock sort of wears off of it. And then you get into, I guess like an acting out phase or something like that. I mean, I don't know, to everyone is different, but I'm just talking about like my personal experience. I know like once I left the nest, I was wild. I was crazy. I was doing all kinds of like things but yeah, I don't know that I would change it because I think it's a part of me has led me to who I am right now. But it's definitely a thing that it's noticeable. You know what I mean? You could almost say, okay, this thing happened to this person. Just give it a time and they're going to start doing this. You know what I mean? You could almost just kind of predict it almost sometimes.
But you know what? Like, it's funny they said that though, because that part kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Kubler-Ross stages of grief, right? Yeah. So you got the denial, anger, the bargain, depression, and acceptance, right? Like the anger. Like I had anger forever. I went from, and I think in the beginning when they first passed away, it was the denial, like, no, she'll be home. No, she'll be home. She'll be home. Eventually it's the shock, right? And then comes the anger. The anger in my life lasted a long time. Wow. I was angry up until yesterday. I'd have to say probably like late yesterday, right? Yeah, yesterday. No, I was angry up until like maybe my late 20s. Oh, wow. It hit me up until my late 20s. Yeah, up until about, oh no, actually not even. I'd have to say maybe up until I started grad school. Like grad school, the social work program really helped me through a lot of my stuff.
Did it make you have to
that grief and loss class?
Yeah.
Yeah, it made me face it. Like I was really, what's that word? I was really blocked off, like emotionally.
Like blind spots.
That's the one thing that I remember.
Yeah.
Like not empathetic. I realized that, like, I caught myself, you know, when I started the program. Like one thing that I noticed is people would talk about like, oh, I lost this, and people would talk about negative things that would happen, right? And I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, but in the back of my head, I'd be thinking that's tough shit. That's life. Like just we gotta like, just, oh well, you know, type of thing, right? No empathy. I was just like, that's it, you know, and that's the one thing that I noticed. Like that's what it did to me, you know, the losses. Like I was just.
But that's also like, how you were treated though at that time.
You know.
You know what I mean? When it first happened, people were just always telling you to get over it.
True, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's the thing, that it pretty much got to the point where it was just kind of like, oh, well, yeah, it is what it is, right? And so whenever anybody and coming through the program, like, you can't do that as a therapist. You can't be like that with people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely felt like I opened up all kinds of wounds and like tried to like heal back, better and stuff. And so
Was that hard
yeah.
for you to
But
open that wound back up and sort of face it?
God, I've been opening it like it. Yeah, it was difficult because I even though I talked about it and stuff like that, it was still very much present, and there's still some things that I still didn't make sense, and so being able to go through the program, taking classes, and then not only do it, but doing the grief and loss class. One of the assignments I had to do in the grief and loss class was the midterm. The midterm was write about the most difficult loss. So
Right.
I wrote about my mother's loss. So again, wrote it again. You know what I mean? So I've written this story. You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
story, like a couple times, and then not only that, then writing it again in the book. That opened it up again. And so
Yeah.
it was kind of like I remember writing it, just kind of just same thing, tears coming down and crying. And so every time
Wow.
you write it, you like it's a release. It helps. It helped me a little more. So that's that was the good thing about this. Being able to write this and stuff, and it did end up helping.
Yeah, I found that writing for me, like, this one thing I could talk about it, but writing helps me process it in like a completely different way. It's more like structured and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, though, because that's one of the things that I realized that's one of the things that I've noticed with my clients. When we talk about trauma, when we talk about loss, they can talk to me all they want. But as soon as I'm like, okay, we're doing narrative, let's talk about your trauma and write it down.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember
Like,
that.
get
Yeah.
I don't want to, and
Yeah.
what you're talking about. No, and then, and it's funny, I have this one client who ended up, you think you can write about it, you think, yeah, I got this, I could do this. And then the following week, she's like, false bravado. I thought I could. She was, I tried to start, and she was, I couldn't get myself to, but she could talk about it all, but she just couldn't write it down.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a different process. It helps to, it helps to, it helps more, like you said, the process and stuff.
I think so. So for listeners out there who are interested in reading what you wrote, how do they get their hands on this book?
Well, actually, we each got our own website. Mine is just my name, so it's Victoria Serratos, so VictoraSerratos.com. You just go there, and it's $20, and that's shipping included. And shipping is like $8, so the book doesn't really come out to that much, But yeah, so it looks like this, just so y'all know. And it's actually this is the picture, and it's actually it was actually an Amazon's top seller.
Nice.
So
awesome.
that was a bestseller. Yeah. So yeah, that was really nice. That was a surprise. So,
okay, we're approaching the end right now. I just want to see if you have any words of advice that you could share before we part.
Oh man, that's tough. Let's see. Well, if it comes to like grief, one of the things, and I think that we should do, right, with the grief is you feel it. A lot of people try not to feel, right? They don't want to feel. They don't like the emotions. They just, I'm tough, I'm strong. You have to feel your emotions. You have to feel it. You have to cry. You have to be there. You have to be present. You have to let it all out. Let it all out, and then comes the healing. Okay. But you have to really like just express your emotions. If you could have to talk to somebody, call somebody, if it's one of those circumstances that it feels like it's difficult, then seek professional help. It's never, what do you call it? What's the word I was gonna use? Se me fue el rollo.
It's all right.
Yeah.
We're at that age, I guess.
I know, seriously, right?
Plus we're parents, which just messes up your brain like
that. I'm sleep deprived. I'm really sleep deprived. She still wakes me up in the middle of the night. Wow. Like quite a few times. So but I was saying, no, just to express, what is it? ¿Ves? Ya estoy toda confundida.
To express what you're going to face the grief and
yes,
sort of
face the grief. Thank you so much, Richard. Yeah, face the grief,
yeah.
And definitely like just seek help if you don't have anybody that you can really talk to, if you feel like it's difficult, if you've been grieving for a while, there's also complex grief, right? So definitely seek help. A lot of times what helps is if you are spiritual, then get closer to your spiritual, get closer to your spirituality, get more, closer to that. That tends to help a lot more also, I feel. Right. So it's just that, and find support from your loved ones, anybody around that you have who can be there, friends, family, don't isolate. I know that a lot of times with grief comes depression. With depression comes all kinds of other stuff. But the worst thing you can do is isolate and stay away from people, because that's when it really gets you down. Your thoughts then get to you, and you can get into a dark place. You don't want thoughts to get you in a dark place, and so better surround yourself with people who care about you and stuff.
Definitely. And I would add to, if you're a person who likes to drink or whatever, like try to stay away from that, because I think that just compounds the whole situation.
Yeah, it's going to make things more difficult. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing that, like, I've talked to a lot of people. If you have underlying emotion with alcohol, that's going to come out, like as you say, like you see a lot of angry drunks, right? They have a lot of unprocessed stuff going on. They get angry, low inhibitions come down, and, then they get everything comes out.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just that, man. I mean, it could be anger. It could be people have different things, like the way they deal with it, or the way they're expressing like what to do. Like maybe it's to drink and get angry. Some people go out and sleep or try to sleep it away with their different people. You know what I mean? Like it's just so many different ways that I've seen it happen. But with the alcohol, it's sort of like, the inhibitor goes away, so you're the good decision making. Again, we go back to that. Now that's gone. The thing that you shouldn't do, you end up going straight to that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, no, the best thing you can do is actually, like, I feel like if you don't know how to manage it well, then seek help, because the professionals are out there to give you assistance. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're here to help you, and give you advice, and like kind of like help yourself in a way. That's what we're here for. And show coping. Coping is the big one, right? So it could be healthy, or unhealthy, like a lot of people do, seeking drugs and sex and destructive ways.
Violence. I think I've seen a lot of guys like that. Like we talk about the anger and the rage, people just getting into fights. Like somehow if I beat up enough people, or if I get hit enough times, no, dude, like come on.
It's just self-destructive behavior.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not going to do anything good in the end. It's just going to make you feel worse. So.
And I think having like that group, like you said, people maybe who've so like a support, not like a group therapy with people who have been through the same thing, and you see that they've made it further along. Not that the pain, like you kind of said, like it doesn't really ever go away. Like you're always going to miss that person, but there is a better day tomorrow. Things do get better. Yeah.
Yes, the pain, like the pain is always there, but it does diminish. Over time, it becomes less and less and less and more bearable.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on my show, Vicky.
Right. Thank you for having me. I truly appreciate it.